Sally. Good morning. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Thank you for joining us for the January 2025 Town Hall. We will get started here with just a few updates, and then we will talk about Mission Geo, who is sponsoring this town hall. Thank you very much to Mission Geo for the sponsorship. So we'll go through just a little bit of the latest IGSHPA news before we turn this over to the speakers. This is our first town hall for 2025. We are accepting abstracts. So if you'd like to speak at one of these town halls or dig deeper webinars, just go to the website at IGSHPA.org. You'll find a button called Training and Events, and you'll be able to submit an abstract. We're also accepting advertising for this webinar. It's a great deal because these are recorded, and so your logo will be on the recording as well. Just a reminder on the 2025 conference, it seems like it's far away, but now it's only 2 months, March 11th through the 13th, 2025 in Champaign, Illinois. The annual conference is with GAOI, Geothermal Alliance of Illinois. We have a joint conference this year. It's in, as I mentioned, Champaign at the I Hotel. Our hotel block, this is actually a little bit outdated. It was 7% available. I did this yesterday. Now we may have 1 or 2 rooms available. There are other hotels very close vicinity, but if you want to be right there at the convention center, then you'll want to act pretty quickly. Also, early bird registration is available through January 31st, the end of this month. After that, registration cost goes up. We have a few more sponsorship opportunities, some conference advertising opportunities, but not many booths left. So we're right down to the wire. We'd like to thank our conference sponsors. We certainly could not do this conference with GAOI without our sponsors. As you can see, we have a good deal already. There are some openings, and this is a great way to get your name out there with your products and services. So let us know if you'd like to sponsor the conference. Likewise, you can see in yellow the 1 booth that's left in the exhibit hall. So if you want to exhibit, I would suggest doing that today, putting in that request, because we have just that 1 booth in yellow left. We have added some additional tables in the lobby. On this next slide, you can see we have some tables. 3 of them are still left in the lobby, and we have some space here for heavy equipment. Fortunately, this will be a great area for drill rigs and other heavy equipment in the parking lot, and those companies will have a table in the hall. Just to remind you, Geo Outlook magazine is our digital magazine that is now back in circulation, and the next edition will be the end of this month. So if you're not receiving Geo Outlook, please let us know. Some in the past have either unsubscribed accidentally or it's going into their junk mail, so you'll want to make sure that you're on the IGSHPA mailing list to get this magazine. The next edition will be in July, and we're accepting now advertising for July as well as articles. It's not just the IGSHPA audience. We're partnering with BNP Media, and this magazine also goes to Engineered Systems and ACHR News. So we're up to about 51,000 as our audience, and it's really a great deal to get in front of the wider HVAC industry. So let us know if you're not on the mailing list. The IGSHPA databases, we've gone through a phase 1 at this point with projects and with licensing and CEU requirements, but you're the experts in your local area, so we really need your help. If you'll go to this area on the website, you can see the screenshot here where it's located. You can actually submit projects and information on licensing and CEUs. Phase 2 will become a more searchable database. If you're looking for CEUs, these town halls and dig deeper webinars are available for CEUs for your certifications. So please put your name and your email address in chat or in Q&A, and we'll keep track of those for you. There is another option. We started last year with being able to use this webinar later on as a recorded webinar. If you want to use this for CEUs later on, you'll need this code. The code is only for watching a recorded session. If you're here today live, don't worry about that, just your name and email address. But if you're watching this as a recording, you do need this code in order to qualify for CEUs. Just some quick housekeeping notes. If you would put your questions for the speakers in chat or in Q&A, and at the end of the presentation, I'll read those questions and we'll have some time to discuss Mission Geo. A little bit more housekeeping. We have noticed that some people cannot access the chat. It may be security settings for your organization. So if you can't use chat, you might get a message that looks like this. Just click OK, and you'll be able to use chat. If you can't use it for whatever reason, we have enabled Q&A. And worst case scenario, if you still can't send a question, then raise your hand and I'll unmute your mic. One last slide here before we announce the speakers. This is a disclaimer and potential conflict of interest that we read for every webinar. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenters and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. IGSHPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It is the presenter's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. And now I am happy to announce our speakers. Again, thank you to Mission Geo for sponsoring this town hall. Feel free to switch your screen whenever you like, John. So you may have seen in our emails and social media that Eric Tarikian, the director of Mission Geo, was announced as speaker. Unfortunately, he's had a death in the family and won't be able to join us today. But we have two industry experts that work closely with Eric, Joe Parsons and John O'Hara. So let me introduce those two individuals. They're definitely experts on this topic. Joe Parsons brings an impressive 4 decades of HVAC experience with a specialized focus on renewables and geothermal heat pumps. Starting in 2018 at Climate Master, Joe came on board as the senior product manager and played a pivotal role in overseeing residential products and programs. By 2023, Joe further expanded his influence by transitioning to the Climate Control Group marketing team as senior marketing sustainability manager, serving the Climate Master, Climate Cool, IEC, and Climate Craft brands. Before joining Climate Master, Joe made significant contributions as president and CEO of Earthlink Technologies, a Florida-based geothermal heat pump manufacturer. He's passionate about building the sustainable growth of the geothermal heat pump industry through education and awareness programs. Joe actively contributes his expertise on topics such as the Inflation Reduction Act, decarbonization, business case development, and collaboration with drilling industry professionals to promote the widespread adoption of geothermal heat pump solutions. Our second speaker, John O'Hara, is Vice President of Public Relations and Public Affairs at Mower. He has worked in the PR industry for 40 years and has served as Vice President of PR at Mower for the last 25. John has worked with a variety of Fortune 500 clients across multiple industries and also manages the agency's building and construction practice. So it's my pleasure to turn this over to Joe first off for a great presentation on Mission Geo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Really good to be here. Certainly wish Eric could be here. I was looking forward to his presentation. Eric did a great presentation rolling Mission Geo out at the National Groundwater Association conference a few weeks ago. Brings a lot of enthusiasm, and we were certainly fortunate enough to bring Eric into Mission Geo. His passion really shines through. It's just great to have him on board. Go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. This is a 2-person presentation. The reason for that is I'm going to provide some background on Mission Geo, how we got to Mission Geo, why we've been working on Mission Geo. And I think it's really important to understand, what we're doing as an industry. Talk about why geothermal is growing, some challenges that we have, and then why Mission Geo. And once we get to that point and begin to talk about changing perceptions, I'll hand off the presentation to John O'Hara. Again, John is deeply involved, and we've actually been working with John for quite some time. Please go to the next slide, John. So again, why Mission Geo? I think it's very important to understand that Mission Geo, while it was announced on December 3rd officially, this process has been in the work for well over a year, probably closer to about 16 months from looking at the concept of what we're doing here and why it's important. So the mission, as it turns out, is obviously there's a lot of interest out there in geothermal. On the slide, we're seeing, cost savings obviously are a key driver and the efficiency of the system is unmatched anywhere around the world as far as technology, as far as efficiency, up to 50% more efficient than conventional HVAC systems. And then longevity with, the confirmation through ASHRAE that these systems have a useful life of exceeding 24, 25 years. And ground loops or ground heat exchangers, as we term them now, can last, they're warranted for 50 years, but certainly can last a lot longer than that. So it makes sense. It makes sense. That's one reason geothermal is growing. But we need to get to the point where we're growing at a more rapid rate. So the climate is right for it. And Mission Geo, again, was a concept of creating awareness around the technology. Next slide, please. So yeah, why is geothermal growing? Obviously, there are tax incentives out there. On the commercial side, we have tax credits that begin at 30%. They can be increased by 10% for including domestic content, depending on where the systems are located. We're looking at an additional 10% for energy communities. And there are other incentives through Section 179D that can increase and build on the incentives so that you're looking at up to $5 per square foot for tax deductions. Accelerated depreciation is there. 5-year geothermal technology qualifies as an energy efficient property and therefore qualifies for accelerated depreciation. And also even for a first-year bonus depreciation if the owner chooses to elect for that option. We're not talking about doing a deep dive into tax credits today, but certainly currently nonprofits can opt for direct pay options. So even nonprofits who have no tax liability can actually receive a rebate from the IRS. Next slide, please. Yeah, why is geothermal growing? Again, on the residential side, tax credits, we've had tax credits for quite some time, but they're still out there. The Inflation Reduction Act extended those through 2034, and it's certainly driving adoption of the technology to help to offset some of the increased cost of installing ground source heat pumps. So let's see, I really wanted to back up a bit and talk about what went into the decision to establish this opportunity and create additional awareness around ground source heat pumps. This started out, as I mentioned before, well over a year ago. We looked at first doing the research. The initial research was around establishing a baseline to understand where we are in the industry from the standpoint, the number of systems sold, the locations of the systems sold, so that we have a baseline. Obviously, we need KPIs to understand is the program working. So that was one of the initial things. We did research. We went out and established relationships with firms that went out and did the research. We were pleasantly surprised and somewhat surprised to get some of the initial results that indicated that not only did consumers, understand, but also contractors were aware of the technology. We were so surprised. We went back with a research firm and asked the questions again, just to determine that, hey, there is some knowledge out there. And we identified a little bit deeper as well the fact that we have individual companies that are actually deeply involved in ground source heat pump technology and installations. So first, we established that baseline. Second, we started, once we confirmed the research, we found that we needed to develop that roadmap. Okay, so this Mission Geo is actually a multi-year program. Okay, it is a program. It's not just about creating general awareness, but it's looking at how we find the right partners to grow this industry. And part of that process was, once we determined the path that we were going down, the fact that we needed to find the right partners. Obviously, working with a professional public relations firm was a major component of what this program looks like. So that process was lengthy. We went through an initial evaluation of actually 10 organizations that were looking and interested in providing their services, narrowing that down to a smaller selection, and ultimately but determining the best partner, which we determined was Mower, primarily because of their interest in the technology and their proven track record of over 40 years of industry involvement, working with utilities, and having that knowledge base, and certainly a very qualified creative team as well. The other part of the selection process, though, was looking for the leader of this organization, and how we rolled it out. Just for clarification, Mission Geo is a component of the GeoExchange organization. I think most people on the call probably know Ryan Doherty and all the good work that he's doing on the legislative standpoint, and advocating for our technology. But Ryan's very busy, and we needed another part of the organization that could be the promoter of the good work that Ryan's doing at GeoExchange, and the good work that IGSHPA doing, the new training programs and development of training programs that's happening through the Ground Source Heat Pump Association. So let's change to the next slide. Okay. So industry challenges for geothermal. Talked about the incentives that are out there. I think there's some concerns, though, with some uncertainties around how those incentives may change with the change of administration. This industry has had some dependencies that we've developed these dependencies around these incentives, but they're absolutely not completely necessary. So, as companies, manufacturers that are looking and building products, we understand that our focus is actually built around the states as well. So there's a lot happening within the states. Obviously, you first think of New York with the incentive programs that are there, but there are many other states that are certainly active in promotion, providing incentives, providing local incentives, and there's a tremendous focus around that. So as Mission Geo moves forward, they will focus on looking at states where there is certainly promise there to help utilities and to help local state organizations to help to grow those markets. So we talk about incentives. Not only are incentives important to this process, but we also need to look at look forward. We obviously have no crystal ball, so we don't understand yet what is happening fully, on the federal incentives. We do feel like we're in a relatively good position there because there are a lot of programs out there and awareness programs that are in place right now. Okay. And we're looking at these opportunities throughout the various states. Job creation is very important. There's a lot of support in multiple states at the federal legislative level right now, looking at the opportunities that have been created through the Inflation Reduction Act, but looking at some specific problems that exist right now. So grid stability is one. There's been widespread adoption of air source heat pumps, which have caused additional stress on the grid. Data centers are in the news every day, and what needs to be done and the infrastructure that needs to be developed to offset the additional electrical requirements, for these huge data centers. Other events, that's something that's important. We're looking at these other areas that are important to us from the standpoint of opportunities for, as I mentioned before, jobs creation in the U.S. and Canada, and also the fact that domestic content is important. So we're building products. The majority of the manufacturers that build ground source heat pumps are companies that are based in the United States and Canada, and also the plastic pipe that goes into the ground is primarily manufactured in the United States. So we have some advantages there. We also have opportunities around decarbonization efforts. ASHRAE through an ASHRAE 90.1, those opportunities that are created there around those building efficiency requirements tell me and tell this industry that the decarbonization efforts are here to stay. Legislative support, I mentioned before, there are eight senators that are all on the federal finance committees that are supportive of the good work that's been done in their states and the jobs that have been created. And then there are geothermal renewable energy credits. There are companies out there that are aggregating these credits. What are these credits? We can talk about that as we go forward, and Mission Geo will certainly be focusing on those areas where these credits are available.
Okay.
Just a second.
Okay.
So again, we talked a bit about lack of awareness, and I just wanted to touch on that for just a few minutes about what does that actually mean. I think, as an industry, we still have somewhat of an identity crisis. There's some confusion in the marketplace now around geothermal, what geothermal is, confusion between the difference between geothermal power production and geothermal heating and cooling. Over the years, we've called our technologies earth source, ground source, and I think that's where we're landing right now. From the standpoint of ground source heat pumps, it makes sense as a comparison against air source heat pumps. And also the fact that IGSHPA, for example, is the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. ASHRAE has changed the terminology to reference ground source heat pumps rather than geothermal. The CSA 448 binational standard addresses ground source heat pumps and ground heat exchangers as opposed to ground loops. So I think we're close there. The identity is as we move forward in the Mission Geo, will be promoted, as systems, these systems as ground source. Misperceptions, mentioned that in a previous slide. Are these misperceptions? The fact that systems are more expensive, is drilling required for all systems? There's not a lot of awareness, but there will be around alternative loop types. Ground temperatures at too high or too low. There's too much risk. There's a lack of training. I think IGSHPA, and I know IGSHPA will providing that solution with the update of their training courses and training curriculum. There's a lack of customers. They can't find the driller. Can't sell the product. It's too complicated. Air source heat pumps are just as good. The list goes on. I mean, those are misperceptions. And thinking through this presentation, let's, just looking at, 10 or so that just come to top of mind. But it's the fact that it's important to understand that in most every state and province in North America, there are companies out there that are successful in installing ground source heat pumps. That's what they do. They know how to sell those products. They know the business opportunities for the products. So sales, service, and replacement market. There are tens of thousands of units out there that are beyond 25 years of age, creating a tremendous replacement market. So these are some of the misperceptions, maybe some things that, companies don't consider, as they're considering opportunities to get into the HVAC business. And again, these replacement units can be replaced in a matter of hours rather than days. So you'll notice that, we're focusing as Mission Geo on industry professionals first. We worked through and starting about 8 years ago, worked through as an industry and created a promotion to create awareness around ground source heat pumps, primarily focused at the end users. And we found that we were pretty successful in doing that. This was a geothermal for all campaign, and it generated a lot of interest. But we found pretty quickly that we'd almost outkicked our coverage from that standpoint. We needed the infrastructure in place, and Mission Geo is all about infrastructure development. So, this is creating that business opportunity, showing the fact that there is a viable industry out here. The opportunity is there. We have residential and commercial incentives that are out there today. We have the solution for grid management at an affordable rate and an opportunity to speak to these opportunities, thus the need for Mission Geo to have that voice, to speak with one voice, to work, as an industry, to have content out there that can be used and to educate businesses out there around the opportunities for ground source heat pumps. We can't expect companies to move forward until we can provide them with some assurances that we're moving forward in the right direction, that we have the opportunities, and the opportunities will continue. So it takes a lot of effort and again, a budget and a plan to work through this opportunity, to work through this project that actually is not a project. It's actually, a mission. It's a program. It's a multi-year, multifaceted program that will be rolled out through the efforts of Eric Trickian and Mission Geo, working closely with the sister organizations, GeoExchange and International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. So I think we're to the point I'd like to turn this over to John O'Hara. Let John begin to talk about how we go about changing these perceptions, what the plans, what plans we have in place, what's been done so far, and what, will be done, throughout the coming years to achieve this goal of more rapidly increasing the ground source heat pump market. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Can you guys hear me okay?
Just fine, John. Thank you.
That's good.
Oh, good. Okay, so just a little bit of a recap. So as Joe mentioned, we really have two marketing goals or two goals for Mission Geo. One is raising awareness about benefits of ground source heat pumps, and two is helping to change misperceptions. As he mentioned, there are some misperceptions out there, and I'm going to walk you through how we're going to help change some of those as well. So first, we're going to focus on, as he mentioned, the trade professionals. From past research, from past marketing experiences, we know that creating more demand from homeowners and from building owners won't necessarily help us grow if we don't have the contractors and the drillers and the architects who are able or willing to install these types of projects. Creating even longer wait times and backlogs on projects doesn't really help anyone. So our first phase will really be concentrating on using all the tools in our marketing toolbox to help raise awareness and change perceptions among trade professionals. And we'll be developing a variety of materials that can be used on our website, on social media, in articles, and I'll go through some of those things that we're going to be doing. But we're really focusing on reaching the drillers, the contractors, the architects and engineers, et cetera, the folks who are really doing the work, as opposed to generating more interest necessarily from homeowners. So Mission Geo was launched, as Joe said, just before the holidays. And we've already seen some great press coverage. You probably have seen some of it as well. But we launched our website. We've launched some social media, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But really just getting started. We are absolutely in our infancy here, and we've barely scratched the surface. And we're going to be focusing on a lot of different aspects of marketing, and I won't bore you with all the super details on the marketing side of it. But one of the key areas we're focusing on is a proactive and ongoing public relations campaigns, and that's really what we call earned media. It's the part of the business where we're seeking out articles, we're talking to reporters and editors, and we're really trying to get press coverage. But there's a whole lot of aspects of that that we could talk about as well as we move through this. So one of the things that's essential to do is to speak with one voice and can communicate the benefits of ground source heat pumps. All too often we see, one person will say one thing or another person will describe it a different way, and that's okay as long as there's somewhat consistency. So we develop what we call key messages, and we use those in a 3x3 format. And I don't know about you, but when I go to the grocery store, if I don't write it down, I can usually remember 3 things. More than 3 things, I have a very difficult time remembering what they are. Also, you need proof points to go along with those 3 things. So we would have 3 key messages and 3 proof points under each one of those messages. It's a very fundamental, basic thing, but it really helps everybody, sing from the same hymnal. Really, that's the whole goal here. Not that everybody has to say the exact same words and the exact same thing, but the concept and the idea has to be essentially the same. So we've spent a lot of time on that over the last few months. I've been working on that. And one of the other essential things is we have media training, and we have conducted 2 media trainings. Our friends at IGSHPA and GeoExchange have also been through that in addition to the Mission Geo team. And that allows us to help to deliver those messages, as well as to really manage any difficult questions and situations and how to handle those as well. So, those are fundamental things that we'll be working on and continue to revise and update as we move forward. So one of the other aspects of this is really creating a steady stream of news. We have to make sure that we're getting our name out there, we're getting the word out about really about Mission Geo, GeoExchange, and IGSHPA, but we're really trying to focus on creating a steady stream of news. with case studies about projects, opinion pieces about key topics, and really information about workforce development. The great stuff that IGSHPA is doing, and we want to certainly help to highlight that. We'll be looking for ways to really leverage timely news. I'm sure you guys see this. There's all kinds of examples of this where something pops up in the news that day. Could be, good or bad, but it includes or involves ground source heat pumps or geothermal heating, and we want to be part of that conversation. So there's ways that we can react quickly to do that, to suggest Eric and or others to be spokesperson, do interviews and things like that. Trade shows and conferences are always an important way to reach trade professionals. We'll be seeking speaking opportunities, media interviews, sponsorships at key events. We're doing a lot of work in that area already. We had a great groundwater week a few weeks ago before the holidays, and we co-exhibited with GeoExchange and IGSHPA. We're certainly looking at other opportunities at like AHR Expo in February, and we're going to be a sponsor at the annual conference for IGSHPA. And there's certainly a lot of opportunities coming up throughout the whole year, and particularly in the fall trade show season, when there's a lot of different conferences and shows that we'll be looking at as well. So one of the things that we have already developed, and I would encourage you to go on there and follow, like, share, do whatever you have to do. But on LinkedIn, we're just starting to get active. We're quickly building an audience and quickly building followers. We'll also be launching a Mission Geo Reddit site. This is exciting for us. It's something a little different. And there's a lot of technical discussions that go on at Reddit, and we think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to engage with the folks and really to help correct some of the misperceptions that are out there. We're also going to be developing what we call longer form pieces of content, like ebooks and white papers. And those really give folks an in-depth look at some of the questions and changing some of the misperceptions that are out there. But it also allows us an opportunity to essentially break up those longer form pieces and use them in a lot of different ways. That's essentially the basis of content marketing, which I won't go into too much detail other than to say that these longer form pieces give us a lot of opportunities in many different ways in our marketing toolbox. So I think everyone's probably familiar with these marketing campaigns. Everybody remembers Got Milk, I think. And there was also one on cotton. I don't know if people remember that. But cotton was the fabric of our lives. Super well-known campaigns. Our phase 2 efforts, which is after we really helped to build a bit more of a infrastructure development with the trade professionals. Phase 2 is really to focus on this broad-based international marketing effort that will focus on, generating consumer and business demand. This type of campaign will truly be about raising awareness, and trying to help folks understand the benefits of geothermal heating and cooling. So Joe touched on this a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit more into this. This is the 3 legs of the stool, so to speak. All 3 organizations are working in tandem on a daily basis to move the industry forward. We're talking with Ryan, we're talking with Jeff. The Mission Geo team is in there as well. And everybody has a different role to play, and everybody has a different focus. Mission Geo is going to be focusing on, as we said, raising awareness among trade professionals and helping to support workforce development opportunities, any policy issues that are impacting the industry with GeoExchange, and any, changing any misperceptions. So the 3 organizations are going to be working together. So the next phase will be, of course, raising awareness among consumers and commercial property owners as well. So, IGSHPA will continue to focus on workforce development and policy issues and all the stuff that it does. GeoExchange will continue to focus on policy efforts, and Mission Geo is essentially helping to generate awareness, understanding, and provide education as well. So those are the 3 legs of the stool. 3 organizations that are really working on your behalf, and 3 organizations that are doing 3 different things, but also working in tandem together to provide a great effort for the industry. So what does it all mean? It means bigger markets. As we move forward, we'll be able to expand the markets and more demand ultimately. And as we know, all boats rise in a flood. So that means that organizations will take better advantage of workforce development and education opportunities offered by IGSHPA and others. It'll mean you have another resource of information, in addition to the great programs like Mission Geo or GeoExchange and IGSHPA already have. Mission Geo is another resource for that. And then, again, you have three great organizations working on your behalf to really expand the technology. IGSHPA.org, geoexchange.org, and now missiongeo.org. So finally, the question is really, how can you help? I appreciate you being here. Thank you for joining us. But, we are looking for story ideas. Is there a topic out there that is front and center, something that's important to you that you don't think anyone's covered, or something that you think might be interesting? Are there great customer contacts for case studies? I know there's some really interesting projects that are going around all over the country, but we don't know all of those. We certainly don't have access to all those. And we can help develop stories related to those. And so generally, we're just looking for thoughts. And you can email me directly, johara@mower.com, or eric@missiongeo.org. And we really, really, really would love to hear from you guys. And this is a really exciting opportunity for Mower, but also for the entire industry. And there's going to be a lot more interesting and exciting things to see as we move forward. So with that, I will stop sharing for a moment. And I guess at this point, we can.
Great. Thank you, John and Joe. Great presentation, exciting stuff. We already have questions, so I'll start reading those questions that have come in through chat and through Q&A. And thank you everyone for attending. Mission Geo is certainly an exciting initiative. Our first question comes from Al. He asks, is Mission Geo aware of and interested in participating as partner on DOE GSHP paths competition initiative?
I think so. I mean, we've talked to a little bit with Geo Rising and some of the other organizations too. But if there's other new opportunities out there, send me an email and we'll talk about it and we'll discuss it for sure. We're always looking for new stuff. There's an awful lot out there, and it's helpful if you guys could send us stuff, and as we sift through everything that's in the industry. So yep, let us know.
Thank you, John. IGSHPA is participating in the DOE prize as well. Let's see here. The next question. Sorry, John. Joe, go ahead.
No, I was just going to jump into that as well. I think part of we talked about planning, and the importance of planning and the process we went through. So a lot of these things were identified early on, and those are certainly part of the mission and Eric's mission, with the support of the brands that are out there and with support of GeoExchange. So it's connecting, it's just multiplying the impact through Mission Geo. I think ultimately that's what it's about. I think, just to add one more comment too, we talked about research initially to develop the baseline. Research will continue, and part of the outreach that John mentioned at the end of his presentation will be outreach to the industry itself. What type of tools are needed for the industry to grow? So obviously, not only to have input for articles and case studies, but what tools need to be developed so that there's consistency of messaging. So certainly research is a part of that, and that leads to better execution of the mission of Mission Geo.
That's a great point, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, our industry is notoriously bad at marketing and PR, so this is very exciting that we have this help. Our next, we have a question and also a couple of comments from Jake. Jake makes a comment about some materials in New York State. One of them is a feasibility tool. He has a link in the chat if you've seen that. And also he mentions a manual from New York State. Both of those are links in the chat. Jake's question is, would it be possible for Mission Geo to translate the IRS residential tax credit description into a clear scope boundary diagram for reference by project stakeholders. So I think he's asking for a little bit of a summary and explanation of how that tax code works. Joe or John, do you want to take that question?
I can take the first part of the question,
Sure.
and then create some additional work for the PR firm from the standpoint of messaging. We are currently, as an industry, working with various organizations around the country to evaluate as we go into 2025. We can certainly do that from the standpoint of what's happening today. And I think, we're looking at what's happening down the road, and then how we take what we have existing right now. And as I tried to touch on, the opportunity at the state levels, as well as to what we can do to, again, generate the awareness, to generate and build the infrastructure to work through, Department of Energy, to work through opportunities with organized labor, to work through opportunities to develop the workforce. It's absolutely we need it, for this. I mentioned the GFA campaign before, Geothermal for All. Made some bold statements, as manufacturers out there, and as an industry, to do outreach to customers to say, okay, you have, if you're interested in a ground source heat pump, just call us and we'll respond. We had customers out there that we just didn't have enough workforce out there, and we still have some issues like that with long wait times for drilling and things like that. So this is all about that. This is all about bringing the drilling industry up to speed, having relationships with the drilling industry so that they can make the investments that they need to support, looking at other opportunities for investors to look at alternative methods of installing loops, ground heat exchangers, looking at opportunities through thermal energy networks, things like that, that will grow this industry and can grow this industry exponentially.
Thank you, Joe. Did you have anything to add to that, John?
No, I think you covered it. It certainly a lot to do there, and I think we could do more using some of these tools that are out there. I was just looking at the link a little bit. There's some great tools that are already out there. We're certainly looking at ways to utilize all of those great already developed materials and incorporating them into different ways we can use them.
Thank you. Paulina has a great question. I ask this question all the time. And she asks, well, she mentions first, IGSHPA has members from both Canadian and U.S. firms. Will Mission Geo cover both markets? There are some great studies in both markets, and I agree with Paulina. We need to make sure we include Canada. What are your comments on that, Joe and John?
Definitely including, Canada in the mix. And there will be obviously some opportunities coming up, I think, in the very near future, and definitely that will certainly be on Eric's agenda to be there, to have, to establish those relationships and to take advantage of some opportunities that are in Canada. A lot of the better studies that are out there right now, as far as the implementation of and the benefit of ground source heat pump, as far as grid management, and energy avoidance, have come, from Canada, from the Dusky study. So, yeah, definitely aware and definitely, planning. That's on the agenda.
Thank you, Joe. If I recall, John, there were Canadian trade pubs that already published this press release. So I know there's outreach in Canada at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Paulina. Our next question is from Ken. This is to Joe and John. Do you plan to target government policymakers? GSHPA in the UK is now working hard in this area as we have been ignored for far too long. So IGSHPA has an MOU with GSHPA in the UK, and we're on joint committees there. So I think this is great feedback from Europe. What are your thoughts on policy?
Joe, you want to go first? You want me to?
Yeah, well, all I can say is, from the standpoint of, as I mentioned earlier, part of the goal of Mission Geo is to magnify the work that's others are doing now, like GeoExchange, and those efforts, advocacy, legislative changes, creating awareness, again, working with not only on the federal side, but working on the state side to take advantage of future gas proceedings that are happening now, take advantage of, state interest in developing state, income tax credits and rebates that are going on in multiple states now, and really focusing on renewable energy credits, especially as the market for these credits continues to grow, especially with, you've got Google and Microsoft are grabbing these up as soon as they're created to, as their carbon footprint continues to grow as they open up these data centers. So renewable energy credits aren't going away. ASHRAE 90.1 is not going away. There are going to be things that create the primary market for our technology. John.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. He definitely
I guess too that it's good to know we're talking about PR, but also Mower brings to us capability on the public affairs side. That will be kind of led and directed by GeoExchange organizations to make sure that we're aligned with the work that Ryan is doing in DC and within the states. But they're very strong there. It was one of the items that really checked the box for me from the standpoint of having an active PR firm and a PR organization that was not afraid and prepare, and then certainly prepared to put boots on the ground if necessary, to support an effort through public affairs. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say on the public affairs side is, workforce development, supporting what IGSHPA is doing, but also trying to help if there's other programs that could be developed within each of the states and at the federal level. And those are some of the efforts we want to help out as well on the public affairs side of it and the policy related work. And that's definitely an important element of this.
Great. We're still waiting on a few questions right here. So I have some, if you guys don't mind. We have about 6 more minutes. This is a relatively new campaign as far as the announcement is concerned. And I think people are going to be excited about it. How can people get involved with Mission Geo if they would like to join in these efforts?
Well, I'll start with that. I guess the thing that at the end I was trying to emphasize was that, as we get our social media ramped up and going with LinkedIn and Reddit, we'll be bringing other social media platforms online as they become appropriate, depending on who we're trying to reach. But also, you can engage with us at conferences and shows. We're going to be attending a lot of these events. We certainly want to talk to folks and engage with people in person. And then, of course, as I said, send us emails. Let us know what you're doing. If there's interesting things that you think we should be looking at covering. I love some of the comments that I just saw about tools that are out there in New York, tools in another place. We've seen a lot of these around, and we're working on some of our own things too. It's certainly incorporating all the great stuff that's already been done. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel if we don't have to. So. Follow us, like us, share us, and then also beyond that, send us emails, engage with us, ask us questions. That's what we're really looking for, to be your Mission Geo. We're here to help support you, help support the industry, and certainly help support IGSHPA and GeoExchange. So, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, let me just jump in and just add a comment that just came to mind, because if you visit the websites now of those 3 organizations, you'll see some similarities. And again, we keep talking about same messaging, same look. I mean, if you're all supporting the same team and wearing the same uniform, basically, this is a brand agnostic effort. Okay, it's not about any particular brand. This is about growing an industry it's time for this now. The timing is right. All the stars are aligned, basically. Mission Geo wants to push this out. So, being able to do outreach, doing outreach to the state organizations, so that there's some consistency of messaging there. A uniform, a badge, a supporter of Mission Geo. I think is important to show that the numbers of individuals or companies that are out there supporting this effort, and get behind the good work that Eric is doing already.
Christine's question ties directly into this. I think it's some great comments and a question here. She says the IGSHPA Act Committee, which is Advocacy Communication Task Force Committee, is a group of state and provincial associations. They've been working on various projects to advance ground source heat pump technology, including our International Geothermal Month, which is coming up in April, some Geo 101 toolboxes for utilities and contractors. And she asked the question, how can we best work together to not duplicate efforts and collaborate and support initiatives that the ACT committee is working on, maybe a joint meeting? Who wants to tackle that? I think that's great that we can all work together.
I'll be happy to do that. And I'm sure that, the PR firm can help to participate, as we roll out these programs. I mentioned, this whole process started 15, 16 months ago with planning. And quite frankly, I was really pleased to see that the individual organizations, took it upon themselves to create their own marketing initiatives through IGSHPA committees, through work that the GeoExchange was doing and continues to do. So I think that's those things are under discussion right now, as far as how we can participate. Obviously, to have Eric involved, in being involved in the standing meetings of these committees, and as part of the team, that supports this and supports the directives. I think it's important that we make sure that we can tap into the resources that Mower brings to the table. So that there's combined work, there's consistency of messaging and content and visuals, and using the PR firm again to amplify the work that's already being done. From a standpoint of the work that's around the geothermal month, last year in April, I mean, Jeff, you're aware of the spike in interest, that happened in that month. Expanding that to international, I think it's super important. And again, I think it just adds the fact that we have, another voice out there, a very loud voice, and someone who can take the work that's going on in these committees and then building on that. Having Eric out there to be that, kind of leading the cheers out there, and then to leverage, the good work that's already being done, through these various organizations. So I follow the work that that committee's been doing, and certainly it's just another reason that it's time for ground source heat pumps to take the front of the stage now, to see that work that's going on. That's why you see
right at 1/2 so we're gonna have to wrap up here. But thank you so much, Joe and John, for sitting in for Eric. Thank you everyone on the call. I really appreciate the questions. This will be recorded and posted on the IGSHPA website at IGSHPA.org in the next couple of days. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the week. And if we can be of any help, let us know. Have a great rest of the day. See ya.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.